State Paulides, CanAm Missing Project. That is Huck L. Berry. And this is Huck TV. She gave me a big ration the other night. Dad, you better start showing that. Okay, there's one. And then she said, I want that one where I'm sitting on the boat looking majestic. I said, okay, here you go. There's Huck TV, the majestic dog with the cape. And she was just running around nutsoid. You can tell she got a cut. She got it a little short, and it's 20 degrees outside, and she was out there for a half an hour running around crazy. And I thought for sure she'd come in early, but she didn't. But she was having fun, and you're a good girl. Yeah, you're a good girl. You got all fluffy. This is like her undercoat right here, and it's all soft. It feels good, huh? Yeah, he's a good pup. Yeah, you're a good girl. Yeah. And people have asked, this is a Great Pyrenees, and they're called the Gentle Giant because they're usually really big and they're very gentle to people. Not so gentle to predators, and they protect flocks. That's their big deal. Yeah, flocks, animals, livestock. Oh yeah, I just told them all about you. Don't get mad at me. This, we are back from the premiere. Everything went great. Thank you. And we have now the DVDs and the Blu-rays in our store. And we have the infamous Missing 411 National Park hat. And with the names of the parks that are in the movie. So check out our store at missing411.com. Please check it out. Got a lot of different things going on there. Some fun things. The posters, you buy a poster, I'll sign it. That's the deal. And I think what else happened? People ask me how come Tacoma? Well, Tacoma was in the middle of the area that we did the movie on, and it was a great venue to do this, to do the premiere. Hopefully, if you didn't live stream it, you can watch the movie on Amazon right now and on Apple TV. So get over there and please watch it. And please, please, if you watched American Sasquatch, please go back and leave a review. It helps immensely. All right. In the last several episodes, we've talked about Michigan. And I'm somebody who believes that that massive amount of fresh water that we call the Great Lakes has something special there. And it's not only above water, but under the water, there have been things found that can't be explained. And whether it's on the ground or in the air, things have disappeared. Now this incident, I'm going to take you back a long time. But it truly shows you how strange of a place Michigan is. Bear with me because there's two stories. The stories are about 20 years apart from each other. And they are uncannily similar. When I found them, I couldn't believe it. The first case involves a young girl named Katie Flynn, 3 years old, missing in the summer of 1868. Now, this is one of the few stories where a child disappears in the 1800s and they name the child. Normally they just say the daughter of Mr. Henry Flynn or the daughter of so-and-so, but they usually don't name the child. In this incident, several articles about it, they named her. her dad, Henry Flynn, he ran a lumber camp in the forests of Walhalla, Michigan. And you said, hey, Dave, where's Walhalla? Well, that's a good question, Ollie. So here's Walhalla right here. Remember we talked about Sheboygan, and we talked about Drummond Island, and we talked about a disappearance down here near West Branch at that state park. All of the area from about Holland, Michigan north, all of this area has strangeness. This is the Canadian border right here. I can't tell you why, other than that area north is covered on 3 sides by fresh water. Just the facts. Well, Mr. Henry Flynn, during the summer months, he had Mrs. Flynn and Katie come out to the job site and stay in the cabins that were there. During the winter, they stayed at home. Now, part of Mr. Flynn's job was to drive a team of horses pulling lumber up a hill from where it was cut to where the mill was up on top. Turn around, come back, and get more trees. Now, I know this seems odd for many of you at 3 years old, and it did for me too, but it was a different time in the 1860s. So this is June of 1868. Henry, the dad, would have Katie ride his horse back from where he dropped the lumber at the top of the mill, ride the horse with him going down the hill. Once they got back down the hill, she would dismount, watch her dad get the lumber together, and then what she'd do is she'd run back up the hill on an adjacent trail. Once back up on the hill, jump back on the horse. It was like a thing all day. Well, on one of those trips, running the trail, she never made it to meet her dad. He thought that she just went to the cabin where her mom was at to get some food or drinks and didn't think much about it. So at the end of the day, he rides back to the cabin where his wife's at, and the wife looks at him and says, "Where's Katie?" And he goes, "Well, didn't she come back to the cabin?" "No, she never came back." Uh-oh. So he and the mom went back up into the woods looking for Katie. And they got other loggers and people in that community to help. The first thing they did was to check the trail that Katie always ran. And they found something that was very suspicious, and it was in the newspapers at the time. They saw her shoe marks coming together with what was quoted as a large black bear. Now, they said black bear specifically because there were no grizzly bears in Michigan. So the implication was, well, the bear took her. And that's what the article kind of implied. Well, now things got very serious. Well, as luck would have it for the Flynns and for the camp, 2 hunters happened to stumble into camp and immediately offered to help look for her. Well, it was getting dark by that point, and everyone decided that they were going to go as long as they can into the night. So the lumber camp had shingles that like you put on your roof, and they made torches out of those shingles, and they walked through the forest until very early the next morning looking for Katie, calling her name. Nothing. Well, Not many people got much sleep that night. Early the next morning, search and rescue. It's everybody in the camp. There's no formal search and rescue. Everybody in the camp and the hunters get together. And they left at just daylight. And during the day, they decided to split each other up and go into different areas looking and calling. Nothing. Nobody had gotten a response. At 4 p.m., one of the group of searchers, remember what 4 p.m. means. Some of the searchers hear a feeble, that was the word, a feeble cry in dense brush. So the group of the men start breaking their way through, and they can see a river through the brush. As they're getting closer, they hear another faint cry. And just as they break through the brush, the searchers said they saw a huge black bear jump in the river and disappear on the other bank. At about the simultaneous same time, they found Katie standing on a downed tree crossing a portion of the river. Searchers went over, picked her up, and they found that she had scratched feet and hands, but was essentially okay. Now, you're the searcher. You know that those bear tracks met her tracks on the trail the day before. And now you see them together and she's not eaten and she's still alive. It's pretty amazing, right? Well, searchers carried Katie back down to the lumber camp. And her parents asked her why she didn't run away when she had the chance. Here's the quote. "Big Dog came up to me, took me in his arms, and walked away with me." What? That's what she said. One of her shoes was missing, and her parents asked her where it was. Her response? Big Dog ate it. The parents made it a point to say that Katie had never lied to them. She didn't have the wherewithal really to understand a lie. So she was probably saying things under the best comprehension of what she was looking at. There were several articles about this. In one, she answered a few more questions. As to what happened, she told her dad that she had walked away, and her quote was, "A big black thing came along and played with her. Then it held out its paw, and they walked away together." Think about that. Dogs walk on 4 feet, right? She specifically said paw, but she said black thing, meaning she didn't really know what she was looking at. I think if it was a dog, she would have said dog, but she didn't say dog. She went on to say that just before dark, it left her alone in this little clearing. She said she didn't leave. She said a little while later it came back and it was carrying, this is the part that blows my mind, wintergreen berries. Now we don't have those in Montana, so I'm not sure what they are, but I'm sure in the comments section someone will explain. And she said that her and it ate them together. She said it then scraped a bunch of leaves together on the ground, and they both laid down to sleep. And it covered her with part of its body to protect her and keep her warm. What? What? So what I'll say to this story is that I truly believe that Katie was having a difficult time comprehending what she was dealing with, which is why she didn't use the same word to define it in any of the discussions. And calling it a black thing, I think is interesting. And in this instance, berries, again, played an integral role in this story, as they do in many of the stories that I've written about and talked about. Some articles written about this incident said that they thought that a wolf had taken her. Be a critical thinker. Wolves can't pick berries. Wolves can't carry berries. It wasn't a wolf. I think if it was a wolf, she would have called it a dog. The searchers said that they believed they saw a giant bear jump in the river as they approached. Big, hairy thing jumped in the river and swam off. It'd be interesting to know if there had been any odd-looking animals spotted in this area in the mid-1800s. Now, this story is in Missing 411 Eastern USA and continues a long list of odd disappearances in Michigan. I didn't make any of that up, by the way. There were probably 10 different stories written about Katie's disappearance. And I will bet you that Mr. Flynn did not allow her to run up and down that trail anymore after that. My question would be, if Katie knew what a bear was, had she ever seen a bear with her dad? That part of Michigan has a lot of bear. Had probably way more bear back then. So if she had seen it before, maybe she'd understand what it was and she could have described it better. But it goes back to what I know about bears. They don't have that kind of behavior. They aren't loving, cuddly. No, they will eat you. Now, about the time I found that article on Katie, I came across another article. Use your critical thinking skills and see if there's any similarities in these stories. This one, there is no first name for the victim. The only name is the daughter of Millard Davis, 2.5 years old. So Katie was 3 years old. This one, girl's 2.5. I find it interesting that there are 2 girls. This happened on May 9th, 1888 at 4 p.m. 20 years after Katie disappeared, in a place called Boyceville, New York, in the Catskill Mountains. Now, where's Boyceville? Good question. This is up in Upper New York. Here's the Indian Head Wilderness. Boyceville's right there. West Hurley, New Paltz, Rosendale, New Windsor. This is Connecticut over here. So Upper New York, right next to a lake. Gotcha? So at about 4 p.m., May 9th, 1888, the daughter of Millard Davis is playing near the front yard of the Davis home. Now, I've told stories about young kids in the recent past, and many of you said, "Are you kidding? You're not going to leave a young kid like that in their front yard, especially in the woods. There's no way." I agree, but it was a different time. She would always play in that front yard, play around other kids' homes in that neighborhood, and then she would come home at supper time. Always. This one night she didn't return. They checked with other kids in the neighborhood. Nobody had seen her. Nobody had heard from her. It was very odd. So the family gets out and they get friends in the area and they start searching the woods in the neighborhood, calling her name, nothing. They get more families. And they get formal government people into that area, mayors, store owners, and they search into the night. At the end of that night, the community conjecture was they believe she fell into a local creek. Isn't it amazing that 100 years later, that would be the conjecture that they would come up with today? I think it's sometimes just a rationale to quit searching. Mr. Davis didn't believe it. He said he thought his daughter might have been kidnapped by local tramps. Ooh. Local tramps in Boyceville, New York in 1888. Well, I guess it's been going on a long time. Now, the New York Times had an article about this story in May of 1888. They covered the incident pretty thoroughly. A day after Katie disappears on May 10th, 2 miles from the residence, a fisherman is trying to get trout out of a small creek in a deep ravine between two tall mountains, 2 miles from Boyceville. As the fisherman is moving upstream, he sees a small girl standing in the middle of the brook. Let's stop there. I keep telling you guys, water is key to all of these disappearances. Some of you still are fighting me on this. Why would a girl be standing in the middle of a brook with cold water around the first week of May? That water is very cold. Why would she be standing there? Be a critical thinker. The fisherman walks up to her, gets her out of the creek, and the closest town was Boyceville. So he starts walking downstream with her, taking her back to town, and somebody will know who she was. Well, he walks in, and he before he even gets to town, he meets some searchers. "Oh my gosh, you've got Miller Davis's kid. This is great, blah, blah, blah." They all go back to the family's house. The Davises are ecstatic. Thank the fisherman. And then they wanted to know what happened and where she slept last night. In another interesting response, the parents said, "She's a young girl. She always tells us what happened. So let's listen." And they asked her, "Well, where did you sleep last night?" The response was, "In the woods with a big bear." All right. Obviously, she knew what a bear was. Otherwise, she wouldn't have said it, right? The parents said that they questioned her 3 different ways for the next couple of hours. "You sure that was a bear? Could it have been a dog?" She stuck with the bear story. Now, if that was your child, what would you do? I know what I'd do. But I'm weird. I'd be looking all over her clothes for hair off the bear, fur off the bear. That's just me. Some locals said that the bear probably came out of the mountains, was walking around Boyceville. She saw it and followed it into the woods. Okay. And then the bear slept with her all night? Is that what you're saying? It didn't make any sense. Water. She's found in the middle of the creek because why? Now, this is your weekly test by Dave. Why would Miller Davis's daughter be standing in a creek when a man makes the corner and sees her all of a sudden? Here, I hear somebody in the back. That's right. Because whatever took her knew that if they left her on land near a creek where there's soft soil, they'd leave tracks. But leaving her in the middle of the creek, there are no tracks. Now, this applies to Katie Flynn. What would a 2.5 to 3-year-old girl mistake for a bear? Come on, you guys are sharp. Well, unless you really think a bear took her. Is that possible? In each incident, you have point of separation. Once alone, something happens. It's like something is watching until they're alone. Now, I was at a conference once and I talked about a few of these stories. And there's some sharp people out here. And they said, Dave, whatever this is, could they be interceding on something horrible that is about to happen to those kids? Is there a mountain lion nearby? Is there a rattlesnake ready to strike? And whatever this is, steps in and saves their life. And then cares for them until a human is looking for them again. Because in both instances, it appears that they were just left alone prior to somebody finding them. So is this thing protecting the kids in its own kind of mind while the parents were gone? That threat in the area is interesting to me. Because to me, that seems pretty logical. Or is the threat that it's alone in the woods and the parents aren't there? Are the two stories are so alike, it couldn't be ignored. Now, a lot of times when I tell these two stories, say we're in a small group of 20 people and they want to hear some stories, it's kind of the things I talk about. Are there any other stories similar to that, Dave? Oh, yeah. The Jared Adadero story in the Missing 411 Western U.S. book that I got to be best friends with his dad, Alan Adadero. Jared disappeared in Colorado. And he ran ahead of a group of single people who were out on a trip. Now, they had lied to Mr. Adadero and said, oh yeah, we were just going to go to the fish pond. Then they decided to drive, 17 miles up the road, get off on a Forest Service road, take a Forest Service trail into the wilderness, and never tell Mr. Adadero that they were taking his kids. Obscenely bad. On that trail, the daughter stays with one of the people while Jared runs ahead down the trail. Now, Jared ran way ahead down the trail. Jared's dad, Alan, owned a resort up in the mountains. Alan had told me before that Jared knew what a bear was because they had seen them wander through the resort. Keep that in the back of your mind. So as Jared, and this is in my first movie, Missing 411, that's the entire title. You can watch it on Tubi right now. Alan is in the movie, and Jared's story is in the movie. It's one of the prime features of it. As Jared's going down the trail, he's alone. Nobody is around. He's a little 5, 6-year-old kid. And as he's walking along by himself, he comes across 2 fishermen. And he's got a stick, and he's playing with the stick in the water. I think he was trying to get their attention in a very polite way. And the fishermen say, "Hey kid, stop thrashing in the water, you're scaring the fish." And then Jared asks them, "Hey, are there bear around here?" The guy says, "No, there's no bear around here. No, never seen a bear out here." Now they're in the middle of nowhere. These fishermen take off, leave Jared alone in the woods. They are the last person to see him alive. I think his statement is very revealing, Jared's. I think he saw something, he perceived it to be a bear, maybe it was a bear, but he disappeared and was found about 400 feet up from that trail on a ledge. Pieces of him were found, and part of his clothing. The sheriff said at the time, "Oh, a mountain lion killed Jared." That's what they told Alan, the dad. Alan, being a brilliant man, took the clothing and showed it to 3 different mountain lion experts. And they said, "Mr. Avadero, we don't know what killed your son, but we do know what did not kill your son. And a mountain lion did not kill your son." They never did determine what killed Jared. Alan got part of his skull back, tooth, and clothing. It's all in the movie. I encourage you to watch it. I think there are similarities to all 3 of these stories. And unfortunately, Jared didn't make it out of those woods. And you want to know something that is one of the worst parts of this whole story? Is that Alan told me that nobody from the singles group that took his kids up there ever contacted him or ever apologized for what happened. Now, Alan, one of the nicest men I've ever met in my life. He and I got to be best friends after this. Unfortunately, he died just recently. I did a video about him. You can watch him on one of my video feeds here. So he and Jared are together again, and he now knows what happens to his son. Be safe, be kind, and kindness is key. Costs you nothing to be nice. Smile. Paulides out.